Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get to learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And I have a new guest and a new co-writer at guyatthemovies.com, where now I'm writing for somewhere else too, because, I have all kinds of free time. But Larissa Benfey, thank you so much for coming on to talk some movies.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Larissa, would you like to shamelessly plug anything for the audience before we get started and start the questions?
Sure, I'd love to. It has not a lot to do with movies, but just a few months ago, I published a book of poetry.
Awesome.
And so I can give the link on where to find it, but
Okay.
it's just a bunch of poems I wrote and then I decided to publish.
That's awesome. That's exciting. But yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll definitely put the link in the description for the video so everybody can check it out. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Always enjoy shaking things up on here. I also love to read too. When I was younger, reading was my big thing and like movies was more secondary, but now I kind of jumped headlong into the movie thing. So I still try to read though. So
Nice.
I'll have to check it out.
Thank you.
But to get things started, Larissa, what's your favorite movie?
All right, so I am going to do a top three.
Okay.
Because I can't, like, one of my favorite movies is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And in it, Nick Cage is like, you can't narrow it down to just one. So I'm going to pull from that and do my top three, which are Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, um,
Nice.
Pride and Prejudice, the one from 2005. I know there's
Hmm.
all this talk of the other one, but I don't like the BBC version. And my other favorite is Fantastic Mr. Fox by Wes Anderson.
Very nice.
Those are my three.
Enjoy some Shane Black. Love some Shane Black. I've been a big fan of Lethal Weapon since I was younger, and just Shane
Yes.
Black's writing is so sharp, except apparently when he's making a Predator movie. But
Oh, I didn't watch his Predator.
uh,
Okay.
well, you could tell that there was a lot of messing around in it. Like it's so horribly cut down and edited. Like they
Uh,
magically get a van at one point, and you're just like,
mm. Oh, no.
I feel like there's a whole sequence missing here, and it was. And
Oh,
it's one of those kinds of situations. But I
okay.
I love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Love the Nice Guys.
Yes.
It just and you don't like I wouldn't think like Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer would be like peak buddy cop kind of duo, but they're
Oh,
amazing
yeah.
together. They're
Their
just so
chemistry was
amazing.
perfect.
It's
Yeah.
so amazing. Um, I'm such a big fan of Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Nice.
I generally will say cuss instead of curse words in regular speech in
Yep.
life.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
picked
much
that up too.
fun. And I don't know if you've seen this. I hope you have, but I saw like popping around on TikTok, like behind the scenes footage of them recording like the audio, and it's literally them doing all the things. So it's like George Clooney on a motorcycle with Wally Waligorski in the sidecar, and just Wes Anderson sitting there with a microphone on the back of it. And
That's amazing.
George Clooney and Bill Murray literally growling at each other across
Across
the
the
table.
table.
I'm like, this is probably just as entertaining as the actual movie,
Oh
which
gosh,
is
I gotta watch that.
fantastic. But and we accept top threes because you know what? I'm a cheat. Basically, my favorite movie is just three movies. I love Lord of the Rings, and I just say it's one, so it
Okay,
works out.
nice.
So, but also appreciate the unbearable weight of massive talent reference there because
Thank you.
do you love the cabinet of Dr. Caligari just as much as Nick Cage does?
I can't say that even after watching that movie, I wanted to watch The Cabinet of Mr. Caligari. So I haven't checked it out yet, but I do watch Paddington 2 regularly, so I feel like it makes up for
See,
it.
well, that's perfection right there. So
Yeah.
completely understandable. Hugh Grant is a global treasure. and we could all enjoy him
Yeah.
because Nick Buchanan was absolute pure gold.
Yeah.
Now, Larissa, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
Um, I my like earliest memory is I was 17, which means like what was my childhood? I don't know. But yeah, my earliest memory that I can think of is I went and saw Batman Begins
Nice.
um the day after my 17th birthday. And that was the first movie ticket stub that I saved as well. And then like after that, I just every time I went to a movie, I would save a ticket stub and I have this like giant pile now. And so I do remember that one, but anything before that, it's a little hazy and I'm like, uh-oh. But yeah, it was really entertaining.
Well, that's a great one to have as like a first memory going to the movies because Batman Begins is great.
Hmm.
I didn't see that one in theaters, but boy, have I watched that so many times on FX.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure they played that movie every 3 days
Yeah.
for a while on there, and I'm just like, I can't even tell you probably how many times I've actually watched that movie because it was just on, and then you watch
Yeah.
it, and
It's a good one to just watch.
absolutely. But I love the ticket stub thing. That's one of the main things that makes me sad about like I use my AMC app for everything at this point, but you know what?
Hmm.
Miss having a ticket stub.
Hmm.
But occasionally I'll still get one and be like, might hold on to this. So
Yeah.
instead of just scrolling through an app of like, here's all my ticket stubs.
Yeah.
Wow, I can't believe I went like it's really interesting looking back and like, wow, I saw that in a theater. Why don't I remember this movie?
Yeah, that happens a lot with my ticket stubs. I'm like, oh wow, okay.
Now, Larissa, do you have a specific favorite genre of movies?
Um, I think I have like Guy Ritchie, even though he's not one of my favorite, like my three favorite movies. Guy Ritchie's genre, if that's
Mm.
a thing, is my favorite. It's kind of like a crime, dark comedy. Doesn't take anything too seriously, but like has great action. It's a very strange, specific genre, but that would be my fave.
It is a very specific thing, so I'll accept that.
Thank
It's
you.
like you can tell when somebody's trying to make a Guy Ritchie movie. It's just like, but you're not Guy Ritchie. What are you
Hmm.
doing?
Yeah.
And oh, The Gentleman was such a wonderful treat to have before the world fell and
Yeah.
COVID happened. So,
Yep.
I love that movie so much. Between Hugh Grant and Colin Farrell in that, it's
Oh,
just off the
yeah.
charts amazing. It's just like it was like the best you can do. You got to cut me with a knife. You got to cut me with it. Make it sharp. And just Colin Farrell in his tracksuit.
Oh gosh. The intro to
And
him in that too, where he's just in the like little cafe thing. I love
yep,
it.
absolutely. And then Hugh Grant just hamming it up through the whole entire movie. It's like, come play with me, Raymond.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
I would love to have Hugh Grant narrate my story. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And now he's an Oompa Loompa, so there you go.
Yeah, I
I
feel like he's just
lost.
doing whatever he wants with his career now.
Which, when I realized that Paul King was making the Wonka movie, I'm like, that makes a lot more sense that Hugh Grant's in this. But the second I
Mhm.
saw that in the trailer, I'm like sold. Because, like, to be honest, I'm like, do I really care about like a Willy Wonka prequel? Now I do. So there
Yeah.
you go. I can thank my friend Haley for really getting me into Guy Ritchie movies because she bought me
Mhm.
Snatch
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's like her favorite movie is
Nice.
Snatch, and Brad Pitt is something else. Do you like Dags?
Yeah.
And it's so funny looking at Jason Statham like not as a crazy action star and just like Turkish and just being like the Germans.
Yeah.
It's like it's so many people started in Guy Ritchie movies too, and you're just like,
Mhm.
what movie was I watching? Like I feel like this wasn't a Guy Ritchie movie, but like Layer Cake by
Oh
Matthew
yeah.
Vaughn is so much that vibe though. And
Mhm.
I'm like, is that Sally Hawkins? And just randomly in this movie. But Guy Ritchie, Should he be making like big budgeted Disney movies? I don't know.
True. Yeah.
Um, there's things I really enjoyed about Aladdin, but I'm like, did you know if he can make a musical or not? You got him to do this movie.
It's a
Uh,
really weird choice. Yeah.
well, and he's going to be doing Hercules too. And I'm like,
Oh.
so I don't know, but we're going to find out. And
Yep.
all I have to say is if he doesn't cast Danny DeVito as Phil,
Of
then what's the
course.
point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I will lose it once a trailer comes up for that movie and it's literally just Danny DeVito with furry legs and hooves
Yeah.
because
Oh man.
just glorious. Now, I'm wondering if you'll have a different answer to this question, but who's your favorite filmmaker?
Okay, so I do have a different
Okay.
answer. Which like I have a lot of favorite genre
Hmm.
directors and filmmakers, but my favorite filmmaker actually might be Ben Affleck.
Okay.
And it's not because of like his movies are, I would say, consistently really good.
Hmm.
But it's actually more kind of like how he is as a like filmmaker within the industry and the fact that he's kind of like trying to lay ground for like new filmmakers and
Hmm.
all the stuff he's kind of doing on top of being a filmmaker. I would say makes him my favorite. I don't know if I can like pick out like specific ways that he does any kind of scenes or anything like that. I just think yeah, he's like good writer, good director, and then doing good things. So he'd be my favorite.
I appreciate the way you answered that question because that's probably one of the more unique ways that somebody has answered that question. I do appreciate that.
Oh,
And all I can think is just like, what about that Batman movie we were gonna get?
oh
And
yeah.
which I would have like because I really liked his Batman, and
Mhm.
I would have been very interested to see him with that. Like it was supposed to be him in Deathstroke and
Oh,
with Joe Manganiello, and I'm just like, I would have really enjoyed seeing that. What did we get
yeah.
instead? The Matt Reeves, the Batman. I'm like, well, I'm not going to complain about that, but like,
Yeah.
it could have been something else too. We could have
Yeah.
had both of them.
Yeah.
So Warner Brothers is a hot mess, but Air was one of the most purely enjoyable movies that I've watched this whole entire year. And
Nice.
listening, like I'm just like the things I remember most is just listening to Matt Damon and Chris Messina yelling at each other on the phone with each other. That was absolutely hilarious. Matt
Yeah.
Damon's like dynamic with Ben Affleck, who like what a vibe that
Oh, I
character
loved it.
is.
I feel like that was one of my favorite characters he's played. It's so
It's
bizarre.
it is bizarre like that those outfits. And also I'm going to admit I definitely put a lot of songs on my playlist on my Spotify after watching that movie. I'm like, this is the most purely 80s thing that I've listened to in a long time.
Oh
But
man.
like I saw Argo in a theater back in college and was blown away by how tense that movie is.
Hmm.
Ben Affleck also knows how to have a good sense of humor in his movies too.
Yeah.
Even though like most of them are darker. Like Argo obviously is not like light subject matter, but
Yeah.
having Alan Arkin, rest in peace, going like, I was sitting in the diner and they showed all those Canadians, and they're like, the waitress was like, why can't we do something like that? And you know what? I told her, Argo, F yourself. And between him and John Goodman in that movie, absolutely loved it. But The Town
Hmm.
probably is my favorite of his.
Yeah.
And too many people sleep on that because that is a great movie. It was
Yeah.
an amazing $4 I spent on a Black Friday one time. I'm like,
Nice.
really, really well spent $4. So,
Yeah.
which is funny because I'm pretty sure that Black Friday I also bought Blade Runner Final Cut for $2. And
Wow.
like I got some real good deals on that Black Friday.
Nice.
Soon to be rest in peace, Best Buy, because
Oh
I don't
gosh.
think Best Buy is going to be lasting it out there much longer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, bought so
Yep.
many movies there. But now taking things in front of the camera, who are some of your favorite actors and actresses?
So I have a thing when I watch movies. I watched The Drop just recently, which is a Tom Hardy movie.
I did
And
see
then,
that.
yeah. And I just like was like, okay, I now need to watch every movie Tom Hardy's ever been in because I am like enthralled by his performance in The Drop and then
Yeah,
in Legend. And like, so right now, Tom Hardy is, I would say, a favorite. I don't think that's gonna change. Like, he's just a phenomenal actor.
he's that good.
Um, but
So
yeah, he's my kind of like top right now. I'm just like, yeah, anything Tom Hardy does, I will watch. And then Emily Blunt, I really like as well. She's just kind of like a wild card. I feel like she just kind of shows up every couple of years, does something awesome, and then
mhm.
disappears again. So I like her too.
Hanging out with John Krasinski.
Yeah,
Uh,
why not?
why not? I love Tom Hardy, and I'm trying to think like what has he done recently besides Venom? To be honest, like I don't think he's been in a whole lot, at least since like COVID and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
you
I
know
think
what?
so.
I'm not the hugest fan of those Venom movies, but boy, does he try real hard. And he is thoroughly entertaining.
That's a great way to describe those movies because they're not that good, but he's great.
He like if you're gonna have anybody show up and give 100% to a role that's just like so outrageous as that, Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Like if because like I used to watch like the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. I was super into the Sam Raimi movies. And like if you told me like pick Eddie Brock, I'm like, probably not Tom Hardy. But they
Yeah.
did, and then at least we got what he does with Venom. So there you go.
Yeah.
Um, I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and it's so funny because like so much of it's turned into a joke. It's like, can you understand him in movies? But like I if you couldn't tell from all the branding of everything that I have with all my movie stuff, I'm a big Mad Max fan. So
Nice.
when I found out that he was Max, I'm like, yes.
That was
And
a good choice.
do I need to hear what he says necessarily? Can he just grunt the whole entire movie? Yeah, it works. That's not going to change that character any, so it works really well. Um, it's interesting because I have one film on my watch list that I watched like half of it back in college, and for some reason never finished it. Is Bronson.
Okay.
Like just from like the half of the movie that I saw, I'm like he is magnetic and insane in
Yeah.
that movie, and I do have to finish it. I watched The Drop. I think back when that first came out in VOD, I really
Nice.
need to give that a rewatch because like I saw you put that on Letterbox. I'm like, I hadn't thought about that movie in a long time. And like I remember liking it. And
Nice.
it's definitely something worth giving a rewatch. And I love Emily Blunt. I have a monthly movie marathon with my friends, and this past Saturday was musical movies. And like I'm obnoxious. I send out a Google form ballot and everything and stuff like that. And all of my friends basically voted for every single Muppet movie on it. So basically it turned into a mostly Muppet musical movie marathon. And even just like the 2011 Muppets, where Emily Blunt just casually shows up as her character in Devil Wears Prada, and you're
Yeah.
just like, and she's in it for like 30 seconds, but it's a
Yeah.
great 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Um, I I am a humongous Julie Andrews fan and love Mary Poppins. And when I found out they were making another Mary Poppins, and I'm like, nobody can be Julie Andrews. And
Yeah.
then I saw it, I'm like, wow, Emily Blunt was great. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Emily Blunt. So appreciate it.
Nice.
Now, what's a film, Larissa, that you feel like you just watch every day?
Um, I actually have watched some films every day, so I'm just gonna go from like things I've actually done.
There you go.
Um, Pride and Prejudice is actually in there because I don't know. I just like I love period pieces when
Mhm.
they're done right, and so I can watch that one over and over again because it's just so different than what I experience in real life. And I actually, when I watched The Drop the first time, I then watched it again the next day and then again the next day. So
There you go.
that one was one I could watch every day, I think, because it's just like the performances are just so
Mhm.
cool. You see something different every time.
Because James Gandolfini's also in that, right?
Yeah.
So missed. And
Yeah.
like it's he was definitely one of those actors that I think a lot of people just took for granted. It's like it's Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
But like he's such a like The Sopranos worked because James Gandolfini was so great in that show, and being an
Hmm.
Italian American from New Jersey, um, like Sopranos is a pretty big deal around here.
Nice.
Um, but I watched the 2005 Pride and Prejudice for the first time in the past year,
Oh, wow.
and it's great. It's such a well-made film, and it's so funny seeing Matthew McFadden in something that is in Succession at this point.
Yeah.
And it's like, Mr. Darcy, it's Tom.
It took me a
Except
long time to watch Succession without thinking of Mr. Darcy. And now I'm just like, how are they the same person? I don't understand.
no, and they're so different. And that just
Yeah.
it just shows how great of an actor he is. And there's so many great actors in Pride and Prejudice too.
Mm.
Like he's so scummy, and he's so scummy in that movie. But I'm such a Tom Hollander fan. He is
Yes.
so funny, and
He's
he's so great
amazing,
in
man.
everything. I hated his guts growing up because of
Oh,
Pirates.
oh,
Because
okay.
he was so good at being so slimy, and I hated Cutler Beckett so much. But like
Nice.
as an adult, seeing him in things, it's just like he's fantastic. He's so good at
Mm.
what he does. And there's so have you ever played Actortle? I know there's all kinds of like those daily games on the internet and stuff like that. So basically every day you on this game, it gives you a whole list of movies. There's like X's in for all the letters. So like
Hmm.
you can see the actual title. It has the letterbox score and what year it came out. Not the letterbox score, the IMDb score. And you have to guess the
Okay.
actor based off
Oh,
the
man.
filmography. And I'm safe in saying this because this is not going to come out today. So I can spoil today's actorial because it was who actually was it today? Um, but Pride and Prejudice was one of them, and I'm just like, I saw
Ooh.
2005, and I'm like Pride and Prejudice. I'm like, that's definitely that. Well, now that narrows it down to like 25 famous actors that
Yeah.
possibly could be. So we narrowed it down a bit, but
Nice.
it is a very good film, and it's funny because I own it now because my wife owned it. So like when we consolidated our movies, it's just like, well,
Yep.
part of the collection now. So
Nice.
there you go. Now, Larissa, what's a film that you connect with closely because it relates to another interest of yours?
Trying to think what I had thought of for this one. Oh yeah, Stranger Than Fiction.
Okay.
Um, because as mentioned, I write poetry, but I also write I'm like working on novels and stuff all the time. And so Stranger Than Fiction is just like this really cool idea because I'm always just like, I want to talk to my characters and gets to
Yeah.
know what's happening so they can do the job for me. And Stranger Than Fiction is just an incredible movie as well.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I'd say Stranger Than Fiction and also La La Land because I am an actor and I connect way too much with Emma Stone's character in that one. So yeah, those two I would say.
Chasing those dreams.
Yeah.
And getting a wonderful musical number at the end to distract you from the fact that it's not that happy of an ending for them.
Yeah.
Just like it's like La La Land hits in such an interesting way at the end because it's such a whimsical, amazing final like musical number, and then you see Ryan Gosling's face at the end and realize, oh wait a minute, they don't wind up together.
Yeah.
This is a romance that didn't have that happy ending for them, but they both
Yeah.
did well for themselves separately.
Yeah,
And
which is an interesting way to end it, but
sometimes life works out that way.
exactly.
And I watched Stranger Than Fiction for the first time, also probably within the last year.
Oh
And
man.
I, I, I've been the past 2 years, I've dove so headlong into watching new movies that like I think I watched almost 780 new movies last year. And
Wow.
yeah, they release that many movies a year because there's just so many, and there's still hundreds that I didn't watch, and I'm like, this is unsustainable. Um, I have been actively this year trying to like get more movies off my watch list too,
Mm, yeah.
instead of just watching new movies. Because to be perfectly honest, when there's that many movies, a lot of them aren't
Yeah.
great. Like I just watched two screeners before, like when I got home from work before we were recording tonight,
Oh my
and
gosh.
neither of them was very great. One of them I
Oh.
actually gave a half a star on Letterboxd. I don't like doing that, but like it earned it.
Oof.
I'm not going to name the movie right now, but like, wouldn't
Wow.
recommend. But I was so happy when I watched Stranger Than Fiction. It's such a weird experience, and it's such a great role for Will Ferrell to like
Mm,
kind of push himself out of, silly
yeah.
Will Ferrell roles that he usually does.
Yeah.
And if I could pick anybody to write the novel of my life that I live in, I want Emma Thompson.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yep.
because Emma Thompson's amazing.
Yep.
Like it's such an interesting film and such a thought-provoking film because like I think anybody who creates anything has to have some kind of connection like that with these creations that you come up with. Like I've written screenplays. I haven't really done anything with them, but like, I've grown these connections with these characters that I made, and they've been living rent free in my head for like years.
Mhm.
So like you wind up growing a relationship with them in some shape or form, but like that the way that that film materialized that in like a moving picture and
Yeah.
brought that to life is so fascinating and it's so interesting. So
Yeah.
definitely one that I appreciated getting a chance to actually watch recently.
Nice.
Um, Now, Larissa, who's a movie character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
Um, so I feel like kind of similarly with what we were just saying with the characters in our heads.
Yep.
Uh, Walter Mitty is a character because he's just like so in his own head and like
Mhm.
living in his daydreams. And I very much have a tendency to, I'm like, it's so much more fun in my daydreams. I'm just gonna stay here.
So much more
So,
interesting than regular life.
exactly.
I would
So
watch
maybe too
movies.
much.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I love
I,
Walter Mitty.
it's such a like I did watch that film years ago, and I don't remember particularly loving it, but I do recall feeling kind of that connection with him on that level of like there's definitely times where I'm just like off making a movie in my head somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of connection that somebody who like is a creative and is trying to like come up with these ideas and these stories is just like you have to start somewhere.
Hmm.
Daydreaming is a great place to start.
Yeah.
Start to run all those kinds of ideas. So I appreciate that. Um, I love this question because it's very interesting what people come up with. But what's a film that you love that you feel like people would be surprised that you love?
So I I feel like as soon as someone knows me for more than like 5 minutes, there's nothing surprising about me. So I don't know. But I would say I really like cheesy movies,
Mhm.
and I think people like get to know me as like this really big movie fan who's like, oh, I've, seen all these great action movies and like dramas and blah blah blah. But like a lot of times I can just sit down with a really crappy cheesy movie and absolutely love it. So people might find that a little surprising, but as soon as they get to know me, they're like, "Oh no, you're a big cheese ball, so this makes sense."
That's always fun because that's the thing too. Because like if you really love movies and like are really into film and stuff like that, it's like I feel like people have a assumption that like you're like into film and like you can't have fun anymore.
Yeah.
That's a lie. Um, I can quote like every single Adam Sandler movie from the
Yes.
1990s shamelessly. So there you go. And do
Yeah.
an Adam Sandler impression. So to boot. Um, I quote Billy Madison way too much.
Nice.
And it's really bad that anytime I see or hear reference to a swan, that the first thing in my head is like, "Were you looking at Swan?" It's just like, and it's like, I don't have to do this when I go and buy shampoo, but it's like, shampoo is better, goes on and cleans the hair. And
Nice.
it's just like, but like when you watch, like I can't even tell you how many times I watched those movies when I was growing up that it's just like they're just
Nice.
embedded there.
Oh
But
yeah, I quote Gatorade and water sucks all the time. I'm just like Gatorade, just in my
H2O.
head. Yeah.
Oh, but as someone who doesn't drink alcohol like myself, I definitely reference the whole I'll have a scotch and water, hold the scotch a lot. It's like you're trying to make a joke, Bobby. And I have a friend, Bobby, who also appreciates those movies as much as I do.
Awesome.
So that's always fun. So you have to have a good laugh sometimes, and sometimes stuff that's really stupid can give you a lot of laughs. And
Yeah.
I love cinema. Shrek 2 is still my number five movie of all time. So there you go,
Nice.
because it is perfection. Uh,
Yeah.
there you go. Now, Larissa, my last question for you is, what do you love most about movies?
I think um movies are like a machine that like incites empathy in people.
Mhm.
Um they're like intrinsically just force people to feel a different or like see a different perspective, feel something different. And that's actually my favorite thing is it just like you don't have to go anywhere in the world. You can just like watch a movie and find out what it's like to be a Parisian.
Mhm.
Like they just kind of open up a lot of stuff, including like open people's minds. And I think that's probably the coolest thing for me.
And that I really appreciate that. And it's funny because those two films that I watched before this, I did not care about anybody for the most part in either of those movies. And I feel like that's one of the things that if you can't connect and feel with the characters in a movie, there's a uphill battle for you to be able to really connect and enjoy a film. And I love what you said about because like I grew up in a very small town, very homogenized town. Call it the Haddon Dome because it just be like literally six generations of the same family live in this small town.
Wow.
And like I escaped. But like going off to college was a whole life-changing experience for me. But I'm also a hobbit and I
Mm.
don't like traveling from my hobbit hole a whole lot.
Yes.
So, and when I do, it's exhausting. But being able to, like, I've literally only been out of America, the United States once, and
Mm.
it was kind of a cheat. Like, it was to Niagara Falls, Canada, because I was in Niagara Falls and I walked across the bridge. So, like, and I went to a Tim Hortons, which
Yep, that you
was
got the whole experience.
one of my biggest goals because there's one Tim Hortons in all of New Jersey, and
Wow.
it's 2 minutes from my friend Bobby's house, who I referenced earlier. So whenever I see him at his house, I'm like, "Are we going to Tim Hortons?" But it's like I have not seen the world. I haven't experienced all of that, but I love being able to watch a movie and being lost in somebody's existence that is real and from a
Mm.
different place or isn't real and is from a completely different place.
Mm.
As I mentioned before, I love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Middle Earth only exists in New Zealand. So there you go. But it's that's such a wonderful thing being able to connect with people in different cultures and stuff like that and learn from it. And movies are magical. And that's why
Hmm.
we love talking about them.
Yeah, me too.
But how I always like to wrap up the show, I like to give my guests a chance to ask me a question. So, Larissa, what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
Um, I don't know if it's been asked before, but what's a movie experience that you remember that made you really like that was the kind of jumping off point into like you love movies now? Do you have an experience that stands out?
It's interesting because I think it could be summed up in a year. And because I was 10, is 2001. And that year was very formative for me in terms of like movies because one, I saw Shrek, and which the wonderful thing about Shrek is every time you watch it as you get older, you learn new things about Shrek and can appreciate it even more. Because when I watched that as an adult for the first time, I'm like, I feel like I'm fully experiencing Shrek now for the first time in my life. But I remember being in the theater and just loving it, and my mom and my aunt looking mortified because, like, what did I take our kids to? Um, and I think the specific moment was when Gingy's like, and just spits out like the icing. And my mom was like, jaw actually dropped because she's like, they said this in a kid's movie. Because he like, kids just like, he's a cookie.
Yeah.
But that's not what he meant. But, and then later that year, one of the biggest things for me growing up was every time a Harry Potter book came out, I was there that morning at Walmart, giant piles of books, grabbing one, going home, and finishing it in 2 days.
Nice.
And seeing Sorcerer's Stone for the first when like that came out that December was it's literally
Mm,
magical.
yeah.
But the biggest one was seeing Fellowship of the Ring because yeah, they all came out in 2001. And I've told this story so many times, but my aunt took my brother and I to see it, and we had a basketball game, and my aunt didn't check the runtime
Oh
of Lord of
no.
the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. So I'm just sitting there as a 10-year-old, just being blown away by this, which, to be honest, Lord of the Rings can be a little intense for a 10-year-old. But to be fair, also that year, my grandfather made my mom show me The Godfather because it was my culture as an Italian American. So
Awesome.
it was a very formative year for me when I was 10 years old. And I watched all three of them. So
Oh
like
wow.
but to finish my Lord of the Rings story, Frodo gets stabbed by the cave troll and we left. And I'm thinking like, did Frodo die? Did this movie end right then? And then a friend of mine at school is like, no, there's a whole hour. Like, you missed a giant fire demon with a sword and a whip and everything. I'm like, what? And like the whole entire third act of the movie, I did not see in a theater.
Oh
So
wow.
it was great when I finally got that on DVD and actually could finish the movie. So there's that. And that experience is like my brother, who was probably 11 or 12 at the time, and me being 10, sitting and watching The Godfather, way too young. But they're films that I appreciate even more as an adult because I'm like, Italian person made these movies, and I know because I live that, and there's a level of that representation and appreciation for like you could definitely tell they understood what Italian people are like,
Nice.
and I did not appreciate the second Godfather when I was 10 years old because can you
Mm,
imagine sitting a kid in front of a movie that's half subtitles in Italian and trying
true.
to get them to engage in a movie? It didn't happen. So as an adult, I have a much more appreciation for like Robert De Niro's part in the second Godfather and his whole
Yeah.
story. But like how could you expect a 10-year-old to be able to process those movies? But I did love the first one. Um, my mom covered my eyes once,
Wow.
and it was when Michael and Apollonia have their night together of their wedding.
Uh,
So, moral of the story, welcome to America. 10-year-old can't see a pair of breasts, but I can
yeah.
watch James Caan get shot by like 12 Tommy guns and look like Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
that's American culture in a nutshell, right there. So it wasn't one specific movie, but it's very interesting that one year of my life kind of like really shaped what I loved about movies. And like you're 10 years old, you're very impressionable. So
Yeah.
it definitely got me. And look at me now.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that question. And no, nobody has asked me that in the 155 episodes of the show that I've done up to this point, so
Wow.
appreciated.
Nice.
But Larissa, thank you so much for coming on and talking movies with me.
Thank you for talking movies with me.
And thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.